All right, guys. Thanks so much for listening to another episode of the CXChronicles Podcast. I'm your host, Adrian Brady Chizana. Super pumped, guys. Today we have an awesome guest on the show, one that probably a lot of you already know about. Morgan Ingram is joining us. Morgan, why don't you say hello to the CX Nation, my friend?
Hey, what's going on? And you forgot the J though. You forgot. To say
Morgan J.
Ingram.
Morgan J. Ingram.
Can I tell you the story though? Can I tell you the story?
Yeah, now you got to. Now you have to say.
So everyone's like, "Oh, Morgan, why do you always get at people for the J? Why are you being so weird about it? Why are you being a diva?" No, there's a reason. So when I first started creating my brand back in 2016, 2017, I Googled my name. I was obviously nowhere, but the person that was on the page was this person, and recipe. They got missing or committed suicide, and they were on the Dr. Phil show, and their name was Morgan Ingram. So the first 15 pages is this person, right? And I'm like, how? Okay, I'm no way I'm going to be able to pass that anytime soon.
You're going to take a lot of SEO investment right there.
Yeah, I was like, I don't have the money for this right now. Like, there's no way. Like, I'm not there yet. So I was like, all right, what can I do? So then I was like, what if I just added my middle initial? Like, would that change it? So then I put in Morgan J. Ingram, and there was nothing there. And then I was like, all right, well, I'll just take Morgan J. Ingram and I'll just ride with this. So that is the reason why I have the middle initial. Some people think that it's made up. Like, it actually is my middle name. Starts with J. And yeah, that's why. So I always tell people, you got to add the J because I don't want to get lost in the madness. Now it's changed. Now I actually do appear, but not
only that, talk about a hell of a story right there. A great, fantastic way to start with the story. Yeah. And then obviously you do not want to be compartmentalized with some of that search, right?
No, I don't. That's what I was like. This is not what people are looking for. So I have to change this.
100%, man. 100%. Morgan, I want you to set the stage for us, man. Before you do, I just, guys, Morgan is somebody that I think is just doing some incredible work and sees not just like the customer experience, customer success, customer relationship side of the world, but he looks at things very similar to me around how you can marry customer employee with content, right? And how you storytell and how you share ideas and information. And Morgan, let you take it over, brother, but spend a couple minutes, man, set the stage. Number one, how did you get into this entire world, right? How did you come across getting into the world of working with customers? And then I definitely want you to roll into how you started thinking about how to do content or how to put other awesome ideas out there for people to for people to improve their own ground game, man. How'd you get started in this whole space?
Yeah. So let's, this is a two-part answer here. So let's go to part one, which is what you were asking. How did I get started in this space at all? So how I got into this was after college, I got into public speaking. And this is an important part of the story. I went to middle schools and high schools and did motivational talks. So if you've seen Eric Thomas, that's what I wanted to be. That's what I did. So it was a fun time. I learned a lot, and it was my first intro to cold emails. And by the way, I was offering talks for free and nobody wanted me. So just think about the most deflating thing in the world. It's I will literally come for free and people still don't want me. And
we're good, man.
Why do we need you? I was I don't know. It's free. What is going on? So couldn't even sell free time. So that was a fun part of my life. So anyways, I started doing those talks, but I wasn't making I was making money, but not a ton of money. It wasn't crazy. And I was like, how do I make more? So I went to the National Speakers Association meeting. It was one of the few meetings that they had non-members could show up. Okay. So I remember going, if you've been to Atlanta before, in Buckhead, they have this massive tower, the Buckhead Tower, the very top of the floor. I go up there and I'm nervous, right? So I get in this room. It's like a board table, right? It's everyone's sitting down, and everyone you could tell is just a seasoned vet, and I'm just some kid that's pulling up, and they're like, "Who's this guy?" Right? So they start talking about social, and at the time I'd been studying Facebook, Periscope, etc., and they didn't know what to do. So I'm in there saying, "Yeah, you should do this, you should do that." And so everyone's like, who is this guy? How does he know everything about social? So I remember just, having really good connection after that. But there's one person that stood out to me. His name is Jeff Sheehan. And he had been on Twitter. He had tons of followers on Twitter. He had been in the tech space. And I was telling him what I wanted to do. And he was like, look, you could keep going down this path. And at some point you might break, but it's just going to take you a long time. There's a better opportunity if you learn how to sell and you go work at a tech company. And he's like, there's this company called Terminus, and they have 5.75 million in funding, which again, in my mind, I'm like, oh, that's so much money.
Sure.
What in the world, right? So I was like, I need to work there. So he's like, yeah, you have to start off as like an SDR, cold calling, et cetera. At the time, I was like, that sounds terrible. But like, I was at a point where like, I'm open to anything.
Smile now, baby.
Yeah, like I'm open to anything. So I go and look up this company. And then I just did some more recon, and I found the VP of sales number, Tony Bennett, shout out to her. And I cold called her. Now, some of you may ask, well, how's this cold call? It was terrible. It was like, hi, my name is Morgan. Like, I'm just looking for a job, and like, here's all my criteria. I said a whole lot of stuff that wasn't relevant. And I think the fact that I even just made the call, she was like, you know what? Like, come in for the interview. So nice. I remember going in the interview the next week. Good first interview, went in for the second, went to the third, got offered on the spot for the job. And I was like, I absolutely will take this. And it was my dream to work at the Atlanta Tech Village at the time. So it was just like, it was a dream come true for me to work there, because that's where I wanted to go. So that's how I got into tech sales.
Love it. Love it.
First 3 months, I got smoked. I got annihilated. I thought I was so good. I was like, yes, it's easy. Like,
it's so hard. It is so hard.
Unsubscribes, getting hung up on. I remember at the end of third month, this is important for everybody to know, because you might be facing this right now, or may have faced it, or you will face it at some point. It's inevitable. I wanted to quit. And I remember going to my VP sales, Tony, and I was like, I don't know if this is for me. Originally, I actually wanted to go into marketing, which will kind of go into part 2 now, full circle moment. And I wanted to go off on my own and do my own company, again, which is another full circle moment, which goes into part 2. And I was like, I don't need sales. And she was like, okay, are you giving this 100% though? And I was like, no. It was like 65, maybe 70. I wasn't like all in. And she was like, all right, like, here's the deal. You go all in for the next month. And if you still don't want to do this, you can leave. And I'll find another place for you to go. Maybe it's marketing. Maybe there's something else you could do here. But she was like, don't quit on something you haven't given 100%. And as I go more to the story, I think that's where most people miss out on what they should be doing with their life. It's like,
100%, man.
What could be, if you don't give something 100%, you never truly know if like it was for you. And I don't ever want to live with that regret. So majority of things that I've done in my life, I gave 100%, and I was like, that's not for me. Right? Like science. I gave 100% and I'm terrible at it. So I was like, that's not for me. I'm cool with that.
There's some things you just can't grab. Wait, one question for you. One quick question for you before we jump off this. You said like that 65, 70 to get to the 100, and Tony pushed you to 100. Do you remember what were like even if it's just like a ballpark, what were some of those activities, or what were some of those extra holes that you had to dig to get to that 65, 70 up to that 100 to be able to see whether or not that was something you wanted to do?
Number one is time management. A lot of people, I've heard me talk about this in my content, and some people may roll their eyes and think it's elementary, yet it's not, because a lot of people don't do this. Like, I became the most menacing time management individual of all time. Like, it would be like 30 minutes, 45 minutes, hour, 2 hours. Like, my whole day is packed. Even my calendar today, if I were to look at it, like, it's the same thing. It's like hour here, I'm going here, 5 minutes, I need to reach out to this person. It's just, that's who I've become. Because I realized that there's so much that needs to get done, but if you don't time management, you will get smoked, you will get lost. And that changed a lot for me. Number 2 is have gotten better at this over the years, but I'm not good at asking for feedback, because how I grew up, and this is like not to come at my dad or anything, but he always just told me to go figure it out, which is a good thing, right? Because I'm very resourceful, but it's bad because you don't want to ask for help, because you feel like you didn't figure it out yourself, so you feel like your worth isn't there.
Totally.
And it's a different conversation, but like, to go deeper, but you all see what I'm saying. So
100%. And then Morgan, on top of it, man, if you bring up a good point here, folks, that like, maybe if you didn't get any of that feedback, whether it was solicited or unsolicited, folks that do, or folks that get comfortable with feedback early, tend to be some of the guys and gals out there that can actually, number one, they don't get hurt over things that should not be hurting anybody, or taking things, especially in the workplace, man. Like, don't take things so personally. But the other thing too is constructive feedback, constructive criticism, constructive management. You can manage that stuff. You can get through that. You can do it really, really well, and you can do it with a shit-eating grin on your face. You're going to rock and roll, man. You are literally going to rock and roll, because that's just thickening skin. And then on top of it, one thing I want to go back to that you mentioned with the SDR story, Dude, 80% of success is absolutely showing up. It's showing up every freaking day. It's getting back in there, whether you're getting punched in the face, whether you're getting smoked, whether you're killing it, whether you're rocking and rolling. It literally is just showing up. It's one of the biggest variables, and people constantly underplay that or they undervalue that. So just a couple add-on ideas.
Yeah, and you're spot on that. And so I would say like the 3 and 4, and then to kind of wrap it up was listening to calls more.
Yep.
My own calls, other calls, and then 4th, shout out obviously the CX Chronicles here. Actually, like talking to customer success and figuring out like what were the pain points of the customers. It's something that I didn't do as often as I should have earlier, but it's something I started gravitating towards as I continuously evolved as an SDR.
You know what's funny? I love that you just said that, because somewhere along my first or second venture capital backed startup in New York City, and where I was building out either a CX or a CS team, it was probably after the first, frankly. But I started to realize there was a major, almost like a competitive advantage for me, Adrian. Just for me, Adrian is like an emerging CX and CS leader in New York City. I would constantly see these more senior support or operative or tech leaders have this just severe opposition to sales and revenue. And I would get it sometimes because you say, oh, you launched this over the fence and that was terrible and it was half-baked and it was unqualified, this and that and the other, all the stuff that we always hear about, right? But it was funny. I made like a decision super early. I was in like my mid-20s. I was like, no. Salespeople are always gonna be my best friends. Sales is freaking super, super, super difficult. Revenue is blood in the business of any, is blood in the body of any business. And then for folks, even our CX and CS folks, who I think are becoming a little bit more comfortable, a little bit more familiar with having a number over their head and having a dollar sign that they got to think about every month and every quarter and every year. But dude, I knew it was going to be like an advantage to me. Like every business I go into from this point forward, and we certainly do this with CXC with our client work today. If I don't have a sales or a revenue or a growth champion, I'm already a little skeptical, because whatever I can do with CX and CS and pulling out all the wizardry and all the magic, if I don't have somebody on sales and revenue side, the person or the guy or the gal that's bringing that blood in and bringing those new customers, bringing those new logos, everything's going to be 10 times harder, man. 10 times harder and not as fun.
No, it's not gonna be helpful whatsoever.
Yep. But keep going. So number one, so you just got all this different experience. And then it sounds like you liked it early too. You liked working with customers. You liked figuring out how to catch a customer's attention, figuring out how to get them on the phone, and then the relationship building.
So I don't think you know this. I used to be I still do play it, but not to the biggest degree I used to. Chess player.
Okay.
Played chess in middle school.
Are you good at chess?
I was second chair. So for those of you listening in,
dude.
Yeah. So
that's pretty good. Do you still play a lot?
Not as much as I used to. I've gotten back into it recently. I have like the chess app. So I'll play with friends. I'll play the computer. I want to get my skills back. But yeah, I used to know like 10 to 20 openings.
No,
the whole thing.
That is a whole content play that we could talk about at a later date. Chess with Morgan. I like that. Just a game of chess and a conversation around business and life.
Yeah. Yeah. So I love chess. And the reason I'm bringing it up is because chess is, you have to think like 4 or 5 moves ahead. And you also have to use multiple pieces to get the king checkmated. So when I think about prospecting, it became chess to me, because I was like, all right, well, the phone doesn't work, the bishop, I could use the rook, which is like email. Or, hey, if email doesn't work, then I could use the queen, which is LinkedIn. So like, I just started thinking about it in that way.
Nice.
And
awesome.
So I became just obsessed with, how do I get someone's attention? It's a puzzle piece. It's chess. How do I figure this out? And so I just took what was the framework and the foundation. And then I was like, how do I evolve that so that it's more so what I feel comfortable in doing? And so, yeah, I would say like 3 to 4 months after the 3 months of failure, I just started getting better and better and better. I became just obsessed with this was my craft, to the point where I started CXChronicles. I started the SDR Chronicles back then. And so I just documented my journey as an SDR, and that's what really took off my content. And that's when everything changed for me. So John Barrows came along, which I know we're obviously both familiar with. He recruited me to be a full-time trainer, and that was a special moment for me. And he's always been a great advocate and a friend and a mentor. And he taught me essentially how to sell. And that I was like, well, if I'm going to learn how to sell, I'm going to learn from someone who knows how to actually do it.
100%, man. And JB is is incredible, man. Incredible thought leader, incredible seller, incredible coach. He's real, the candor, the realness.
Yeah.
And Morgan, I got to shout it out. We had Megan on the show a few years ago talking about all the awesome stuff she was doing on the customer success side of JB Sales. Great company.
Yeah, absolutely. So I even looking back at it, it's pretty wild even when I say it out loud, because it's like, oh yeah, because we were just in the grind and we were just in it. But yeah, I went on to train Snowflake, Zoom, Slack, Google, Salesforce.
That's awesome.
And their BDR, SDR teams, and sometimes their AE teams on how to prospect top of the funnel, because that was what I focused on day in and day out. And look, I could talk about discovery, closing, etc., but I just committed to being like, how could I be really good at generating demand in this top of the funnel motion? And that became my obsession. And that's what led into that organization. End up leaving to go off on my own, which is part 2 here, but that's at least part 1 of the journey.
I love it, brother. So number 1, so thank you so much for sharing all that. Awesome stories, awesome ideas, fantastic way of just setting the stage. And, it's just so much resonates with me, Morgan, and I guess like, not to get into the long version of it, but like, I just got to the point where after I built probably the 5th or 6th CX and CS team, I'd worked with a variety of different executive leadership teams with different boards and different investors in different industries. And then my team and my tools and all the stuff that we had to do every single solitary day. Once our sales friends would bring a new deal across the line, bring a new account across the line, bring that new dollar bill across the line. It was funny. Like I kind of started to know that there was a bit of a formula. Every executive and every CEO in the world wants to say, this business is different. This business is totally different. Okay, maybe. And sure, a lot of times it is. That's why you're killing it. That's why you're crushing it. That's why a market pays attention to you or wants your product, wants your service. But what I started to kind of realize was like, dude, wait a minute. There's the same thing that you're talking about with SDR. And just business development and optimizing and iterating. I was doing the same thing on the CX and the CS side early. And before there's all this awesome content that there is now too. Me and you were just joking about that the other day, but like now we live in a world where like, guys, come on, you want to go learn something. There is literally so much content at your fingertips. There's incredible people out there that have already kind of shrunk down your learning time. You can at least build upon it, right? So even if you're getting your initial starting list or your checklist, but I was doing the same thing with the CX and the CS side. And it was really because the last thing is the craft. I started to realize that there was like a missing piece in every executive boardroom that I was in, meaning this notion of like, and now it's become more popular. There's lots of CXOs. There's lots of chief customer officers. There's lots of VPs of CX and CS. But my point is like, there was a need, man. There's such a need to have a greater customer voice. I know now it's kind of blended into the customer voice and the employee voice, because if you mirror both of those things and you fill up gas tanks on CX and EX feedback, you're going to fucking explode. It's going to be huge, right? You're going to be able to blow things out of the water. You're going to be able to grow it at ridiculous rates. But I love it, man. I love you sharing it. I'd love to kind of jump into the first pillar team, man, and kind of give us some examples. I know you've worked a lot of teams. You just mentioned some of the companies you had the privilege of working with there, but I'd love to just for you to spend a couple of minutes, kind of give our listeners some ideas for some of the things that you've seen, some of the best, highest performing teams that you've been able to work with and work alongside, and then maybe give some examples or some color around some of the teams that you saw some dysfunction, you saw lower performance. I'd love for you to just kind of give people like a sense for sort of how you think about the whole team pillar.
Let's start with the dysfunction, right? Let's start there.
Start with the bad stuff.
Yeah, well, then we'll tell you how to fix it, right? So,
okay.
Number 1 was not allowing the reps to have a voice, and so some of people may debate me on this, which is fine, but I know where you're going with this. You want to say, okay, well, Morgan, if a new rep comes in, they shouldn't be allowed to do whatever. Okay, I agree with you. They should not be allowed to do whatever, right? That doesn't make a whole lot of sense. They should not ultimately come in and be like, all right, yeah, I'm going to write my own emails. I think they need to be there at least for 3 to 4 months before they do that. What I do see though, as well, is I see people like saying the manager writes everything, no say for any of the reps at all. Well, that ultimately isn't that helpful, right? Because now they're going to be robotic, and what you're telling them to do, you could literally at this point, right? ChatGPT could do it because it wasn't around by when I was training. But now like ChatGPT could do that, right? So that's a mistake. 2 is there isn't a progression path. So you go into an organization and they don't know where they're going. So an SDR gets in the organization, they're like, all right, yeah, we'll promote you maybe in a year. maybe in a year. That's not really helpful for me at all. Like, what does that even mean? Right? Where the heck are we going? Right?
That's like, what's taking a year?
That's like literally going to the airport and then Delta's like, you know what? We don't know where we're going today. We'll let you know in an hour. It's like,
we'll keep you posted.
What? Yeah, like
we'll
what are you yeah, like what am I doing here? So I would need to get on a flight. So like that's just what's happening there. So that needs to stop. And then the other thing that I realized is that not evolving. That's simply put. So it seems like, hey, all we do is cold calls and it works. So we're gonna keep doing that. No, like do emails, do LinkedIn, try direct mail. The teams that I saw that were dysfunctional, they just stuck to one thing. And then when that stopped working, they had to let people go. They weren't successful because they weren't testing, right? So that's this dysfunction. Things that did really well. One is I worked with some teams and their enablement was so good. And what I mean by that is they had enablement calendars. They knew what skills they were looking to address. Their onboarding was really good. And that's what led to their success is they had all that stuff going. 2 is systems. So, which is kind of what enablement, but the people that did really well, they had really good systems. So they're like, all right, when we do calls, this is how we do it. When we do emails, this is how we write it. LinkedIn, this is how we do it. And like everyone knew what the systems were. It wasn't really ad hoc unless you were like a top rep or whatever. But this system allowed for them to be massively successful.
Okay.
Right. And that was the key. And then 3 is they had a lot of coaching-led sessions. Oh, no, peer-led coaching sessions, what I meant to say. So the SDRs are leading trainings. The AEs are leading trainings. It's not just let's bring in someone like me or let's go get someone that is a manager. They're getting reps to actually lead those sessions across the board. And ultimately, the last thing that I would say that led to a lot of success is that you mentioned like the job being hard. They had a lot of mental exercises. So they were working on like a lot of mental health's a part of it, but how do you get better mentally? Like what are some things we could be doing, things we could watch to get better? Those are things that I saw to be successful.
So super interesting. I think I was just chatting with someone the other day, but like when you do think about the best teams in the world and the best bands and the best artists and the best movies, right? Dude, think about what goes behind all that stuff. Come on, the New York Yankees have some of the best and finest healthcare in the world. The folks that are making Marvel movies have literally these massive budgets with the biggest actors and actresses on planet Earth. Bands get, are you kidding me? Bands get to some of the best bands in the world. They get to go work with Rick Rubin. Come on, like
I know who doesn't want that.
But it's funny though. But I know I've brought this up a couple times recently. Like now, let's go jump over to the business world. What's going on? There's very few companies that do some of the big highlights that you called out. Where what I heard was like investing in people in the right areas, support, management, coaching. I heard you say that a few different times. And then I think the last piece is just like it's people got to know where they're going, man. Anybody, I don't care if you're an A player or a B player or a C player. I don't care if you're the best and the brightest or if you're simple and things are hard for you. If you know where you're going, anything in life, anything in business, anything in team building, it's a bit easier. At least you know directionally whether you're going forward, backward, east or west.
I want to talk. I know we're going into part 2 because we mentioned that, but I want to bring up something you just said. I want to bring this example to everyone, and then once you hear this, you're going to think about your work differently. So you just said Marvel, which is part of like Disney, but these big productions. Marvel does an incredible job of including you into the universe, and they're extremely captivating and they touch the emotions of the audience, right? I watched, I don't know, have you watched the movies?
I watched a bunch of them, yeah.
Okay, so I'll give you an example. Ant-Man? Who the heck? When I'm watching the Marvel, I'm like, all right, cool. I know who Iron Man is, I know who Thor is, etc. Who the heck is Iron Man? I was like, bro, why do I gotta watch Iron Man? Or I'm Ant-Man. I don't want to watch Ant-Man. I don't want to watch Ant-Man. Why are we gonna go see? Like, I'm mad. I'm like, why do we have to go see this movie?
You got mad about that? You got mad about this?
I didn't want to go see who Ant-Man. No, I don't want to go see Ant-Man. Like, give me someone else, right? So
I know.
My family,
it's fair.
We're all going, right? I'm upset. I'm like, I gotta go see Ant-Man. Ends up being one of my favorite movies in the entire thing.
It was a pleasant surprise.
Right, but here's the thing. I would have never watched that if it wasn't a part of the entire story. Right?
Sure.
So let me tell y'all why that's important. in B2B, and I've said this a couple of times in a couple of interviews recently, we forget what we like as humans. It's like we log into our work computer and it's like everything that was relatable to us and that we like, we forget.
Yep.
It's almost like if y'all remember like the old school cartoons where like the spirit would go out of the body and the spirit would like, that's what happens. You literally go to work and your spirit gets taken out and you're like just watching yourself do mindless things. And so the thing is, when people create content, they're like, oh, this is going to work. It's like, but it doesn't. The stuff that you consume outside of work, you're spending your time to consume that. Why do we not take the same exact thought process and philosophy in our emotions and what we actually like outside of work to work? That's the biggest disconnect in B2B sales, marketing. You don't care what you're doing. It's the biggest disconnect. You literally are just, your spirit is watching yourself do mindless things and you're not taking action on that. And so I just wanted to correlate that point because it's important for people to know.
I'm glad that you brought that up because I've definitely fielded over the years, man, over all the different jobs and all the different opportunities that I've had in my career. I would get this question constantly, man. And I would get this question, Adrian, how come only, 2 years here and 3 years there? And like, honestly, what now I know at this age and at this stage in my career and life is like, because basically some of these things, that soulless, the example there, I got tired of that, brother. I would get tired of that the minute that because I would show up like, Adrian is here ready to rock and roll and flip tables over if you want me to. That's who I am. The minute I started feeling that soul man peel out of me and go get a coffee when I was leading a team meeting or I was in a customer meeting is when I knew that things probably I needed to find something that was going to. And it's funny, until I got to CXC where now I get to work with all of these different businesses, all of these different CX and CS, all these different sales leaders, revenue leaders, work on different industries, different projects, to our point where sometimes it's coaching, consulting, sometimes it's content, sometimes it's in real life, and you can show up and lead an event or lead a training. Dude, I promise you, your soul does not get pulled out of your body in some of those situations.
No, it doesn't.
Feel alive, you feel ready to rock and roll. And that's exactly. And then the other part is the minute that you start, I know it sounds cheesy or cliche or whatever, but like the minute that you can find something that you love and you love helping other people either find their love or find their craft or find their way with it, that's huge. That is like, that's a game changer in life. And it's something that I'm not saying everybody's going to find that, but if you can keep looking and keep searching, fantastic example around that.
Yeah. And so that's what I would say there.
So Morgan, I want you to get into part 2, and I definitely want you to kind of leading into part 2. So a couple of things. What are you going to be working on next? And what are some of the different areas that you're going to be covering with some of your clients? And then I would love to kind of learn a little bit about, as you've been building your businesses, you built a bunch of different companies. You've been a part of advising and doing all the strategic work at different companies. What are some of the tools that you're using right now on on your current journey? Because I know that you got a bunch of different things going, but like, I'd love just for you to spend like a minute or two talking about tools, just to kind of know, like, to give our listeners an idea around some of the stuff that you're actually spending the bulk of your time. Back to your point about time management, and guys, you got to be productive hackers. Where are you spending? What tools are you actually spending your time on right now?
Yeah. So what's really important for anyone that is a sales leader, sales rep, entrepreneur, or solopreneur, whatever you want to call yourself nowadays, it's critical to figure out what you're doing on a day-to-day basis. So I do a ton of tasks. Like I wrote them all out. I was like, this is a lot. So obviously continuously trying to find that help is important, right? To delegate. But I was like, how do I get certain technology to help me in areas that I'm not as proficient in, and things that like I could do, but can make my job easier. Right.
Sure.
So here are the 5 to 7 that I absolutely love. And some of these I'll be biased because I'm an advisor, but like they actually do work really well.
Okay. Yeah.
So number 1 will always be my go-to. I will never discontinue it. It's led to millions in revenue that I've contributed to organizations, and I couldn't vouch for it even more. It's Sales Navigator. And Sales Navigator continuously does really good updates. And if you're in B2B and you don't know how to use Sales Navigator, I genuinely don't understand what you're doing, because it has the best data set across the board. Some may argue, okay, yeah, LinkedIn and LinkedIn Sales Navigator, they have the same data. It just is a lot easier to do the things inside Sales Navigator, period. So I can build lists. I can see who's viewed my profile in the past 90 days. I can see who follows my company. I just have a better scope of what to do with Sales Navigator. And it saves me time, because I have a list of people to reach out to, and I don't have to go find them every single day.
Totally.
I just take a week, I build a list, and I can do that for a month if I do it correctly. So I love that tool. The second one that I use a good bit is Loom. And some of you are like, wait,
nice.
what about Vineyard? What about these other things? Here's the reason on Loom. And again, I really try to focus on, what's what. And I'm actually going to mention 2 video tools here. Y'all going to be like, wait, why 2? So Loom, the reason I use it for that is because of the content that I create. It's easy for me to like break down what's going on. So Loom's whole design, the reason that they're built the way they are, and you don't see them in the go-to-market function of the product side, is that they want to have really good videos that are good for internal tutorial walkthroughs. So I have an editor, I have a producer that helps me with the videos. So I have to like walk them through like what I want with content, and I need to walk them through how to create the content.
Yep.
So there's that. The other one is Vouch, which is another video tool. So you're like, why are 2 video tools? I like video. So I have 2.
You're a video man.
I have 2 tools. Vouch is better for like inputs and for the sales cycle. So when I'm looking to increase velocity in the sales cycles, do like proposals, etc., I use Vouch for that. So again, might be redundant to use 2, but again, I use 2. And
Sorry, expand it. So, and I'm not familiar with Vouch. So Vouch basically plugs into your email so that you can actually embed a video inside of your messaging. So you can say, hey, it's Morgan. I just wanted to make sure that you saw the proposal I sent over. Let me know if there's any questions. Short reel.
I can walk through the proposal. I can walk through a meeting, recap, etc. And again, it could be redundant that I use Loom and Vouch together. That's fine, but that's just how I like to do it.
No, I think that's awesome. And I'm asking this because think about it, brother. There's a lot of CS functions out there that don't even think about this stuff. Wait, you can't do QBRs? No. You can't do monthlies? No. You can't do biweekly catch-ups with the people that are paying us $170,000 a year for a software that's maybe even borderline questionable. Do this stuff, right? Do some of this more. Think about leveraging your automated side where you can still take the time, or at least you can get the message out. Maybe only some people opt in for that 1 hour business review, or maybe only, once a quarter, people want to get on and do the executive review or the strategic investment around what your product or tools are. But like, keep going, man. Sorry, keep going.
No, you're good. And that's the thing, is that like Loom is really good for, I need to walk through something with my internal team. And that's the only thing that I want for this. Vouch is really good. Yeah, Vouch is good for input. So you can send, this is good for customer success. You could send like, hey, customer, we need these 5 things from you. It sends them the 5 questions so that they can just do the video themselves too.
Yep.
So now you don't have to worry about the back and forth, and you can also add prompts for objection handling, etc. So it's a better UI for the full sales cycle.
And it fits inside of this asynchronous world, man. There's more and more emerging customers that need things to be asynchronous because you got to do it when you can do it. That's what it is.
Yeah. So that's the reason why I use both there. Now 4 is Lavender, and I love Lavender. It's essentially an AI tool for your email. So it tells you if your email is too long, it shortens the sentences for you. It gives you the complexity of the email. So is it on a 6th grade or 7th grade reading level? It tells you if the subject line is not good. It even gives you a grade. It's like, hey, this is a 95 and 96. Nice. I love it. So it tells you if this is a good sales email or not. And I'm always looking to get better at my sales emails. So it helps me write better emails. Even though I train on it and still coach on it, I still want to get really good at that. So I spend the time to really invest and figure out what to do there. So there's that. Now, there's some other tools that you are like, So I use TubeBuddy. There is TubeBuddies for YouTube. I'm getting really big into YouTube, and I coach people on how to like really use it from the shorts standpoint. Yep. So I use it to look at what are the analytics to see, what are some things that are going to be good for me, what can be helpful, etc. All those different things. And then the other one is called Humanic, and Humanic essentially is it's like Crystal Knows, and essentially what it does is it allows for you to see what the disc profile and personality is of that person.
Like that.
And then my last one is Lead Delta. Lead Delta saves me so much time. So it's essentially, it is a relationship manager for LinkedIn. LinkedIn does not do a good job with their inbox. They try to do some updates, but they typically aren't the best.
Yes.
So Lead Delta allows you to like tag certain people. It allows you to remove connections because there's a 30,000 connection limit. So it allows me to remove a ton of connections so I can get my free time back. So I like that one too. So those are just a couple tools that I use. Obviously all AI, all syndicated related.
That Lead Delta is massive. Thank you for sharing all those, first of all. And you're absolutely right, where it's so, I know like sometimes when I get the opportunity to go either speak or present or do other people's podcasts, you get that wave of LinkedIn connections, which is awesome because that's exactly why you're doing it. You're trying to, people want to connect and learn more or talk or introduce each other. Like that's exactly why you're there. And then you realize when you get a wave, sometimes you miss stuff. You miss these simple ones. And then I'm a CX guy, Morgan. Then you can imagine how I feel when somebody says, "Hey man, I love the podcast. Awesome stuff." And I didn't see it for like 7 days. I'm like, "Oh my God, that's terrible. What the hell? They're going to think I'm a loser."
Yeah.
But those are fantastic. Morgan, I want to make sure that we have time to dive into process as well. And you've already kind of highlighted. So you ran us through the tech stack. You ran us through all the different tools, all the different tech that you're kind of leveraging. How do you kind of think about process now? And answer this however you like. I mean, whether it's the way that you and your team right now are kind of thinking about some of the stuff that you're doing with process, with some of the new work that you're doing, or even some of the ways that you've seen some of your past clients and your past companies that you've been able to work with. Who's doing an awesome job with process, and what are they doing? And what are some ways that you've seen companies really kind of fall flat on their face in terms of managing or wrangling process as they scale and as they grow?
I think the simple answer to falling flat is they don't know what each tool does.
Yeah, me too. Okay. Fantastic.
That's what it is. Like, I just don't think it's as deep as that. Like a lot of people, when I look at their tech stack, it's like, why do you have this?
Yep.
Someone said it was good. They're not here anymore. All right. Like, who even knows about this tool? No one. Why do you have it? Get rid of it. Right?
Why do you have it? Yep.
So a lot of it is you have too much technology, or you have too little technology, and you're being too cheap. Like you're like, oh, look, and it's like, well, if you actually added this, your productivity would be insanely higher. So that's how I think about it in terms of that. Now, how at least my video team is thinking about things. This is pretty crazy. My producer, so he does the music for the videos. I think because this is kind of a little tangent, but I have a producer for the music for my videos because if you think about every single movie that is successful, it has a successful soundtrack.
Yeah, for sure.
You can't just throw up a video and be like, oh, this is gonna be good. It's like you have to have good music too.
100%.
So that's the reason why I do that. So anyways, he can do like different bars and different heights of the music, and he could put it into ChatGPT and it tells him like what to do. It's pretty cool.
That's crazy.
Wild. He showed it to me. I was like, what is, I had no idea what was going on, but it was cool. So like we use that. We use ChatGPT to figure out what titles are good, what are catchy, punchy. We kind of go back and forth to figure out what's going on there. In terms of technology for the video side, like that's a big pulse of it. When I think about teams that have done really well with the technology, they look at where their teams have gaps and find out technology that can get rid of those gaps.
Yep.
Simply put. So for example, I want my team to get better writing at emails. I can't coach every single person. Let me go get Lavender so Lavender can coach them and have highly impactful emails. Let me use Lavender to write my campaigns and my sequences so it can be relevant to my audience. Those are things that you want to think about.
I just a couple of follow-on thoughts to this. Number one, you were spot on where it's like the amount of companies out there that are doing between let's just say between over $10 million and under $50 million, the amount of savagery going on with their drunken pirate sellers spending on technology with crazy utilization rates. Wait, you spent $275,000 on that and nobody in this company's logged in 6 months? Yeah, okay. Who do I need to go fire for you? Number one, just kidding. But like the other part too is still kind of questionable. But the other part too, though, is this notion of and it's come up a couple of times in today's episode, man, across all the pillars too. Coaching and additional support. So coaching, education, and additional support. So like I know a big part of the work that we do at CXC, Morgan, like when we're doing tech stack assessments or tech stack health checks, we look for utilization rates, first and foremost. We look for likes, we look for dislikes, we look for spend, and then we look for areas of overlap. Because you just nailed it too. You made a comment about like, wait, why do you have this? And when those three tools can actually, there's features that do that, and then you can eliminate a tool, and then theoretically everything is easier. But again, guys, for our listeners, you got to, if you haven't taken time to stop and do a proper tech stack with the right SMEs in your business, get on it. It could be a 1 hour pizza party and you'd be blown away by how many hundreds of thousands of dollars you could save. And then more importantly, if you're the same guy or gal that's struggling to get that next SDR, BDR, CSM, account executive, customer support rep, enter whatever it is that you're trying to get, go find the money yourself. I guarantee you it's sitting inside of your tech stack, especially if you're a leader who's at a company of north of 100 people. You probably already have 72 tools.
Yeah.
And it's
Way too many. And like you could cut out probably 60 of them and you're fine. It's just about what tool is helping us sell more.
Yep.
And getting rid
100%.
of the tools that are being laggards, which is typically there's
Laggards.
a lot of that.
Yep.
So.
Morgan, before we wind down, I want to jump into that fourth and final pillar, feedback, man. So number one, you're building a bunch of brand new cool stuff right now. So I guarantee you're getting feedback from prospects and from new potential business and business partners and ICPs every single day. But I'd love to just kind of hear you rap a little bit about how you sort of thought about customer feedback in your own personal customer focused business leader journey. And I definitely want to hear you talk about how you've always levered and acted upon some of your teammates or your employee feedback as you get deeper and deeper into your career.
So this is critical. No matter, let's start with no matter what the feedback, and then we can granular. No matter the feedback, you have to think about it in 3 different stages. One is it's credible feedback, like this person has done or been through what you've gone through, so it's credible to some degree. It's like I have to listen.
Yep.
2 is it's like feedback of something that like essentially, like the best way to put this, because it's sometimes I think about it in different ways, but feedback that is directly applicable to you and they're currently in the moment of it. So you have to just be mindful of what kind of advice that is. So it's like if you're talking to an SDR and you are an SDR and you're getting advice from another SDR, like it's good advice, but you got to be mindful because like they could also not be performing. Right.
Totally.
So it's like, okay, like where are you with that? So it's not one where they've done it. It's like they're in it and they're giving you advice. So it's like it's very recent for them. Right. So you got to be like, let's gauge that. 3 is something that I call people out on now. And I'm actually curious that you do this. Projecting advice.
Mm-hmm.
Some people will give you advice on something that they did. It went wrong. And they're trying to project their beliefs in action on you. Hey, I'm going to start this company. You probably shouldn't do that because I started one a year ago and it failed. Okay. Well, we're not the same person. So now you're projecting on me. And I actually now call people out on that. I'm like, you're projecting on me. That's not, that's like not advice.
I like that. You should, because it happens all the damn time in work, in life, in family, in relationship. You're right. You start being mindful of when and where people are projecting at it.
Yeah. Because 1 and 3, you could get mixed up because you're like, oh, this is okay. That's solid advice. Maybe I shouldn't do it. I've started to notice that people will project on me and I'm like, no, like that's just you. Like that has nothing to do with me, right? At all. So I encourage you all to, in whatever way you want to do it, respectfully say you're projecting on me. I do that with people quite often now. It's like, you're projecting. And they're like, yeah, I am projecting. And I'm like, so give me like real advice, not your projecting advice that I don't need. So let's go into the customer feedback. So I just look for trends. So I have probably said the same pitch like 100 times in the past like 3 to 4 weeks. I'm like, here's and at some point you got to have the same energy because you got to deliver it the same. And I look for what the feedback is. So if consistently I hear like the same 2 to 3 things, I'm like, I need to focus there. This is what I need to keep saying because this is working. Or I'll get like, hey, this one outlier thing in our scenario is this. And then I'm like, that's an outlier. So some people might be like, this makes sense, but in our scenario, we're a unique business and we have this thing going on. That's good feedback, but it's probably not helpful because it's an outlier. So that's not going to help you scale, right? But it's helpful, but it won't help you scale. So what I do in looking for customer feedback is what excited you based on what I said? I'm doubling and tripling down there. What are some things I said that like maybe wasn't relevant to you? Maybe I need to throw those out because it's overcomplicating the message. And then what are some things that you heard that like maybe you need more clarification and there's a gap? So then when I'm talking to customers, I'm just figuring out what gets them excited because then that's part of the service or product I need to figure out how to articulate better or hyper focus on. And I'll have better answers the next 6 months as I deliver certain things and I'll get even more tighter. But in terms of the pre-conception, pre-acquisition, those are things that I've learned.
I think that's brilliant, man. I think it's so common, especially for growth companies, definitely not mid-market and enterprise clients, because they already know. They already know exactly how to stay completely focused on the North Star. That's why they're in those positions. But emerging companies, SMB, small businesses, it is so damn common for the shiny problem or the shiny feature type of syndrome, where every time something comes up, you want to go chase it like it's a rabbit. Good luck, man. Good luck. So like, and coming back to feedback, to your point real quick, it's just like, the faster you can get excellent at defining, categorizing, tagging, and essentially compartmentalizing all of your common feedback items, whether it's for your customers, your product, your employees, et cetera, right? And then getting excellent at doing the one-off stuff. One-off library should be literally a living part of your business. One-offs are where you don't know where the next 10 million, 100 million, $1 billion idea or from a point of feedback could come from. And then contrarily, you don't know where the mind that will literally blow your business up comes from if you don't have somebody thinking about that one-off column and constantly iterating and defining on it. So Morgan, J Ingram, this has been an absolute pleasure, brother. Before I let you go, where can people find out more about you? Where can people get in touch with you? And where can people kind of learn more about some of the awesome work that you've been doing, man?
Yeah. So if you want to find me, I'm on LinkedIn, Morgan J Ingram. And my mission moving forward is to help amplify. We talked about content a lot, but help amplify executives and customers' voices through content. And so if you want to learn more about exactly how I'm doing that, you can hit me up. Ascension Media Productions is the company name. And across all social media, I'm Morgan J Ingram. So if you have any questions, feel free to hit me up.
Awesome. Morgan, it's been an absolute pleasure, man. I'm looking forward to our next chat. All right.
Cheers.